was like. Hold her underwater. Watch her life slip away.
Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror. Now, today we're going to be talking about 2000's What Lies Beneath. And I know what you're saying to yourself. Ken and Ashley, What Lies Beneath isn't a horror movie.
It's totally a horror movie, guys. All the suspense and the anxiety that comes along with this movie has me on the edge of my seat for a lot of it.
And if you're going to tell me that you think Psycho is a horror movie and you don't think What Lies Beneath is a horror movie, we're going to have a conversation because this movie pays so much homage to Psycho in so many different scenes. And before we actually get started into that, I do want to say Robert Zemeckis directed this film. And as many of you know, I'm a very big horror fan. But my favorite movie of all time is the OG Back to the Future. Robert Zemeckis also directed that. So to see him take his visual effects and his directing style and put it into a horror movie with Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer, what an amazing movie. So you want to get started, my love?
Absolutely. So the movie, it begins with a woman. She's in the bathtub. And she then wakes up. She's in her bed. She's gasping for air. She gets out of bed and she can overhear her neighbors. They're arguing when her husband comes up behind her and, kind of snatches her, startles her a little bit.
Indiana Jones himself, Harrison Ford.
Kisses her on the cheek. And then they kind of discuss how, I guess these neighbors have only been there for 3 weeks and they've been fighting every single day. So it's obviously been a problem.
And I think that the big thing here is Claire and Norman, Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford, you get the idea that they never fight.
Yeah, their relationship seems pretty solid.
It seems like the perfect relationship.
It does. So we find out that her name's Claire and Norman, like you already said. They're taking their daughter, Norman's stepdaughter, Caitlin, to college. And Claire's having a really hard time with this. This is her only daughter, and she's not ready to let go, which I get it. So they take her to college and are, trying to leave when Claire will not let go of Caitlin.
Harrison Ford has to literally, all right, let's go. Let's get out of
tell
here,
your
babe.
mother you love her, it's time to go. She's getting yanked out of there.
We'll be going through that in about 5 years.
It's going to be me with him. So they go back home and they are kind of getting a little hot and heavy. They're the only ones in the house at this point.
First time in obviously a very long time since their daughter was going to college.
Right. And they hear the neighbors clearly making up after their fight. So she's screaming, being loud, and they're like, oh, we can outdo them.
I love Harrison Ford at this moment. He's like, let's do it.
Yeah. Next morning, Claire, she's taking out some of Caitlin's clothes, kind of reminiscing, getting a little sad. So she decides to go through some old photo albums to remember her daughter.
Just kind of have that little, she's been with me every day for the last 18 to 20 years. We don't get a definitive age, but, I've been the one constant in her life that whole time, and now she's just gone. So she's, having those, empty nest syndrome, going through and looking at old photos and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to any of that. So she finds a picture of a car wreck and she gets really upset and runs outside. This is when she hears the neighbor lady they have a fence, and she hears her sobbing. So she goes and she says, hello, Mrs. Fuhr. And she sees this little peephole and wants to look through the fence. And this is when we get this jump scare.
Are you all right?
I really like this jump scare.
Yes.
Very effective jump scare.
Totally gets me.
Yeah.
Even when I know that it's coming, it still gets me.
Great timing. So Mrs. Fuhr says it's just too much and that she's scared. Claire asks her, what she's so afraid of. Mrs. Fuhr says that one day she'll just disappear. That's what she's afraid of. Claire asks if there's something else that she can do. Is there anything I can do to help you? Mrs. Fuhr says, I've never even met you. Claire apologizing for not being a better neighbor and introducing herself. I think Claire kind of has that down home. You go and you meet your neighbors, you know your neighbors, you love your neighbors.
You take them a pie,
right.
Stuff like that. You know your neighbors, you're there for each other.
And obviously she's been going through a lot. We find out there's been a car accident recently. We don't get much into that yet. She's losing her daughter to college. So obviously there's been a lot going on in her life. So she feels she hasn't been the best neighbor.
Right. And what we didn't mention in the beginning is they just moved into this house. It was Norman's dad's house, actually.
And they're renovating this house. So this is where Mr. Fuhr, he pulls back into the driveway and she runs inside. It's too much. She's scared. She runs inside. Claire tells Norman about this encounter. He doesn't,
He's like, it's just typical husband and wife, fighting.
But Claire, she wants to go over there and handle it. And Norman's like, look, this is none of our business.
Yeah.
We need to stay out of their business. Let's just do us. Claire just wants help. So Norman says he'll call tomorrow. And
like a detective just to kind of like get background on Mr. Fior, because she has some issue, like she feels like maybe he's hurting her,
Right.
abusing her, like she wants to know like what kind of person he is.
And it's one of his friends from the psych department, to kind of get in touch with him because they both work at the same college. Claire takes a basket with goodies over to the Fior's house to welcome them the next day. No one is answering the door, so Claire's walking around on the porch, and that's when she finds her bloody shoe there on the porch.
Claire then walks back to her house and sees her best friend Jody kind of hanging out waiting for her.
Mm-hmm.
Jody's just kind of checking up on her, making sure she's okay. Claire pretty much says, like, I don't understand why everybody keeps asking me if I'm okay. Like, why is everybody worried? And Jody's like, well, for one, you just sent your only daughter to college. You moved into Norman's dad's house and your car. So that's kind of a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
So she said, yeah, the car was a setback, and she couldn't believe it's almost been a year since the accident.
So now we're starting to piece together. We knew there was a car accident. We didn't
Right.
know the extent of it, but obviously she was in a pretty bad car accident where these people are so worried about her still a year later.
Right. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So later that evening, it's storming pretty hard. So Claire, she's going to shut her window because it's storming, kind of storming inside, getting rain inside. When she sees Mr. Fior pulling out this large trash bag, and it looks like it's heavy, and he's pulling it out, and she's like very quietly trying to get Norman's attention because he's sleeping in the bed, and she's like, Norman,
Yeah.
and of course he's not waking up, but once he does wake up, he goes over to the window and they're gone. He's gone.
Right. So, like you said, the car's gone. He's gone. We flash forward to the next day. Claire is peeking over the fence and she scratches her arm. She goes to clean up her arm inside and the door opens all by itself. That's not supposed to do that. You might want to get that fixed.
Yeah.
Claire is playing with Cooper the dog and throws his ball into the water, and Cooper won't go in the water. And he's frozen.
What she says is like like his favorite thing. Like he loves to go into the
she's
lake.
Like, what are you doing, Cooper? Get your damn ball. She stands there and, the dog starts growling at this point. Like, he's like, no, I'm not doing this.
Getting in there.
So Claire goes to get her ball from the water. Norman calls and it scares her. The phone rings and it scares her. When she looks down, she sees a woman in the water. There's a woman in the water. When she looks back after the phone call, the woman's gone. She's not there anymore. But now she's convinced that it was Mrs. Fior in the trash bag.
Yeah.
And now Mrs. Fior is the one in the water. She's trying to find Cooper later. When Norman called, he said he's going to be late.
Right.
So now, she's trying to piece everything together. She thinks she's kind of losing her mind a little bit. We flash forward to a little bit later. She's going back home. She can't find Cooper. She goes to open the door, and the door opens by itself once again. Like I said, Claire, you need to get that door fixed. Doors aren't supposed to open by themselves.
No. So this has her on edge. She's freaked out, so she decides to go to Norman's job. This is when we learn about this gas that they're making called halothane. And it's an anesthetic gas that can paralyze you, but you can still feel everything that's happening.
You are in your zone when you're talking about this stuff. You're like, they got halothane, it's a drug, it's an anesthetic gas, and I'm just sitting here like, halothane gas. Like, you're in your zone, babe. I love it. I love listening to you talk smart.
Oh, thank you. So it lasts up to 3 to 5 minutes, and you can use it on any kind of mammal.
Is a human a mammal?
It is.
Okay. So we learned that humans are mammals, and this drug can be used on any mammal. I wonder if that'll come into play later.
Halothane. So Claire, she tells Norman, like, I hear noises. She got scared. That's why I'm here. And he's like, all right, I'll have the police drive by. She's like, no. Like, I don't want them to think I'm crazy because of all the stuff that's already been going on. She had this accident, and she's just like, I don't want to do that.
No more attention on me,
right.
please. I just need my husband to support me in this.
Yeah, like, I'm scared. Come home. Like, we're done.
Right.
So anyways, the next day, the door again pops open. when she's going inside. She hears someone pulling up next door, so she grabs her welcome basket and goes over. She doesn't see anybody. She's kind of looking around, looking inside the windows, and it looks like there was like a struggle in there. There's a table flipped over. This is when Mr. Fuhr kind of comes up behind her and like startles her.
I just want to say real quick, there's been a struggle. We have a bloody shoe.
Right.
We've seen a trash bag being taken to a car that looked pretty hefty.
Yes. Like, what's going on over
What's
there?
happening, Mr. Fuhr?
Mr. Fuhr. So she kind of introduces herself and says, you know, I'm your neighbor. Is your wife home? And he's like, no, she's not home. And she's like, well, do you know when she'll be back? And this is when he's like in a hurry, won't answer the question, and just has to leave.
Yeah, he just dips out real quick.
Yeah.
So that evening, Claire is watching Mr. Fuhr with her binoculars, which is not creepy at all. We all do it, you know, with our neighbors. He's eating alone. He gets up and Claire loses track of where he went. And I love this scene. Like, she's looking back and forth, like trying to find him. And this is when this happens.
And that scene, guys, right there, that scene is why this movie is a horror movie. My anxiety through that whole scene is up here.
Yeah. It doesn't have to have monsters at the forefront in order to be a horror movie. While there are monsters in this movie, it's not the monsters you would think. So I absolutely agree. This scene has you on the edge of your seat, anxious the whole time. And it just gets better because now Cooper's barking and in the driveway, and we see wet footprints leading up to the house. So Norman sneaks up behind Claire. And obviously he's upset with her now. Like, you're spying on our neighbor.
Like, now you're looking with binoculars outside. Like, what's going on?
Right. And he's kind of peeved because he's like, why aren't you ready? And she's like, ready for what? We have a dinner tonight. We have a dinner date. Once they get into the car, Norman is going to call the restaurant and tell them they're going to be late. Claire says, we aren't at the center of the bridge. You won't get service till we're at the center of the bridge.
Remember that.
It's a weird thing for her to just say out of nowhere. I mean, I'm just saying that. Once we're at the restaurant, we meet Norman's friend and his date, who Claire knows from her younger years. We find out they used to play the cello together. Norman teases her about hearing the noises. He believes that it's the ghost of his late father that owned the house. And you're kind of getting the feeling that, he's been busting her balls a little bit. Maybe he's not taking her as serious as he should.
Yeah.
Obviously, which is hard to say because, you're hearing monsters in your house. What she think, ghost monsters, goblins, whatever. And all the trauma she's been through. Maybe this is a PTSD thing coming out. So I can see both sides of it. But if my wife was that upset about these type of things, I'm going to do whatever I can to try to make her feel better. I'm not going to pick on her in front of my dinner dates.
Well, yeah, and it really makes her upset. Like, when he talks about it, she just gives him that look like, why are you bringing this up?
Shut the fuck
yeah.
up. Oh, trust me. I know that look.
Yeah.
After you've been married to someone for 17 years, you know the shut the fuck up look. Norman, looking at you, buddy.
So at home, Claire, she finds a key in the register. Kind of like this one. Yeah, weird, right? She isn't sure what it belongs to, so she just kind of puts it in her, she's got a
like a bathrobe.
Yeah, like a bathrobe on, and she puts it in the pocket of that. She walks upstairs, and when she gets to the top of the stairs, she notices like steam rolling out of the bathroom, like someone's taking a really hot shower. And she opens the door, and she realizes that the bathtub is just full of water. Nobody's in the bathtub, but it's full of water. So she goes to let out the drain. Because it's overfilling onto the floor.
Yeah, onto the floor.
Yeah, she goes to let it out, and this is when she sees a reflection of a woman in the water.
So she screams at this point, and it wakes up Norman. She goes in and talks with a psychiatrist, because now she's starting to wonder, is she crazy?
Yeah.
She told him there's a ghost in her house. He asked her what she looked like, and Claire says, well, it was me, but she had green eyes. Claire's like, well, what should I do? And the psychiatrist tells her to communicate with her and ask what she wants. And Claire says,
what do you want me to do? Go out and buy a Ouija board?
The next 5 minutes to me is typical Robert Zemeckis comedy.
For sure.
The comedies you get from Back to the Future. Like, this is his little bit of comedy that he threw into the movie, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So she goes and buys an Ouija board, and her and her friend Jody, they set it up in the bathroom, and they're trying to communicate with the ghost. This is when Jody's like making fun of her, and Claire gets a little upset.
It's classic, but it's the typical what you would do if your friend thinks they're seeing ghosts.
Right.
It's gold. I love it.
Absolutely. So Claire's just like, okay, let's just forget it. But then she decides, okay, we want to communicate with Mary Fewer. Nothing happens still. And then a couple of minutes later, the candle starts to flicker, and the planchette on the board
Which
moves.
is such a fun word to say.
Planchette.
Planchette.
And the door creeps open really slowly. Then they realize it's just Cooper the dog.
Damn it, Cooper!
So they're laughing, like, oh, like, what are we doing, you know? Claire, she tells Jody, like, please don't tell Norman that we did this. Like, he already treats me like I'm so fragile.
He treats me with kid gloves already.
Yeah.
I don't need something else pushing him over the edge on this.
Yeah, so please don't mention this to him. And Jody, she is like, well, you did wrap your car around a tree going 80 miles an hour, and he was really shaken up about it. Like, you know, he kind of has a reason to treat you the way he does.
Huh. So we're finding out more and more about the accident. I wonder if we're going to find out more about what happened for that accident.
I don't know. Claire, she takes care of the Ouija board, and she notices steam from the bathroom again. She goes into the bathroom. It's filled. The tub's filled up. There's steam all over the mirror, and she's like, you know, telling the ghost, what do you want? And it spells out in the mirror, you know. So that she's freaked out. Like, you know, it is communicating with her now.
So maybe Mary Fewer is telling her, I'm dead.
Yeah.
You know
Like,
I'm dead.
You know, my husband did it. You know what's going
You
on.
need to help me, bitch.
Yeah. So she gets scared and she runs downstairs, and on Norman's computer, there's like this game that he was playing, and it says enter your initials there. And over, it's MEF, MEF, MEF.
So Claire goes to Norman's job. She tells him she's dead. You know, Mary Fewer, she's dead. Norman makes it about him, says that she's trying to sabotage him. You know, this is a huge night for me. You know, very, very selfish behavior. She gets angry and leaves. Norman chases after her. She sees Mr. Fewer and goes to talk to him and says, you thought you were going to get away with it, didn't you, you son of a bitch? You know, and...
Like making this huge scene in front of, you know, a lot of people.
And she, you know, you killed your wife. Mrs. Fewer walks into the picture at this point, and as they start talking, and Claire's like, you sounded so terrified that day. You know, she's like, I can imagine how that looked to you.
Right.
But have you ever been so consumed by somebody that you feel like your entire body is in pain when they leave you? And
which Claire's just like, no.
Sure. I mean, I guess.
Sure.
Mrs. Fewer says that she left Mr. Fewer and he pleaded for her to come back, so she finally did. Norman and Claire, they end up going to a party. Claire sees the Fewers, and Mr. Fewer pretends to choke his wife, and they laugh about it. And Claire feels pretty stupid.
Yeah.
This is another scene, though, that makes me, you know, appreciate the Fewers. Because they're obviously making light of it, you know. He's like,
yeah,
you know, and Mary
like
Fewer's
you
like,
just
stop.
You just accused me of killing my wife, and I didn't. But you know,
at least you care enough,
right,
to, you know, care about my wife that you don't even know. So, you know, and I just love his face.
Yeah,
you know.
She's like, oh, quit, you know, and even Claire, she's like, and then looks away, like, damn it,
kid.
Yeah,
it's totally me and Ashley.
For
Like,
sure.
That's totally what we would do.
So at the party, an older woman comes up to Claire and asks her how she's doing. She's been worried about her, apparently. And Claire's like, you were worried about me? Why? And the woman says, the last time I seen you, which was the year prior, the night of the accident, you were so pale and upset. You looked like you had seen a ghost. Mm-hmm. So, you know, this kind of gets Claire's, you know, she's...
The night of my car accident, I looked scared and looked like I had seen a ghost. So maybe she does have a little bit of post-traumatic stress where, you know, she kind of blocked out what happened to her that night. I wonder if we'll ever find out what happened to her.
I don't know. Maybe.
Let's go back to the script.
Let's see. So they go home. At home, there's a picture frame with a newspaper clipping, and it falls down and it breaks. And on the back side of the clipping, there's a headline, Missing Girl. Mm-hmm. And the girl's name is Madison Elizabeth Frank.
M-E-F.
Huh. Weird.
She's also really good at poker because she got the high score a lot. You know, her initials were all over that thing.
This is true. So Claire, she looks her up on the internet and prints out a picture of her, and she shows Norman, like, do you know this girl? And Norman's just like, no.
And he's annoyed.
Yeah.
You know, where are you going with this? You know, we just found out that Mary Fewer is not dead. So now you're going to something else. Claire says it's her, the woman I seen in the bathtub. Norman gets angry, tells her that's enough. You know, Claire decides to go and meet Madison's mother. I don't know. Like, this is a little heavy for me, man. Like, you don't know anything about this, and you're going to go talk to her mother about it.
The mother of a missing girl about her, you know, and she kind of plays it off like she knows who Madison is. So, yeah.
And it's a sad scene, you know. She's like, I leave the TV on so it feels like I'm not alone sometimes, you know. So then they decide to go up to the bedroom.
Yeah,
and
Madison's bedroom.
Yeah, and Claire steals a braid of Madison's hair for her seance, which is just super, super odd to me. Norman comes home. Claire is starting, you know, she's looking at herself in the mirror, and her eyes are green in the mirror. She's acting aggressive and not like herself. She starts making out with Norman, but he's being very, like standoffish because she's being rough. Like, she's biting his lip, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, this isn't you at all. Yeah. She throws him against the desk. You see her, and in her hand, she's holding Madison's braid of hair. And she looks in the mirror, and she sees herself soaking wet. Like, something had happened, and, like, she's walking in the door, and she sees herself soaking wet. And that's when we get one of the most iconic scenes in this whole movie.
I think she's starting to suspect something. Your wife.
A scene that is so iconic, you may not have even seen it from this movie. You've probably seen it from Scary Movie 2. Like, that's how iconic the scene is. It was even included in Scary Movie Part 2.
I love this scene, though. It's like, get him. So he pushes her off. Claire says, you know I know. Right before my accident, I seen you and her. She was at the party. Norman begs her, you know, we were having trouble. And she's like, we were having trouble? So you slept with a fucking student, you piece of shit? So Claire, she leaves and she goes to Jody's house. She's done with him.
Well, there's so much wrong here. Not only did you cheat on your wife, you used your position of power on a young, impressionable lady. Like, that's just, it's disgusting, is what it is. Like, when you're using your position of power as a teacher to sleep with one of your students, even if she's in college. I know that she's an adult at this point.
Doesn't matter.
She's still an impressionable young lady. And he used that position of power to his advantage. And it's fucking disgusting.
For sure. So Jody then tells her pretty much that she's seen Norman and Madison at like a coffee shop, and you know, she was gonna go up to Norman and talk to him when she realized that he was like, you know, with another woman.
They were like fighting.
Yeah.
She's like, I seen him with a fire, you know, I knew that there was something off about what was going on with this situation.
But then after her accident, after Claire's accident, he was so worried and, you know, so heartbroken over her that she didn't have the heart to tell Claire what she had seen. So
good friend.
Yeah, I guess not really. So Norman calls Jody's house and she tells Jody to tell Norman, I'll be back in the morning. So she goes to the house in the morning and she finds Norman in the bathtub with a blow dryer in it. Like he had been electrocuted. He's kind of like passed out in the bathtub.
Claire calls 911. They get the police over there. Norman says it was an accident. It must have fell in when I was getting out of the shower.
Yeah.
He convinces the police enough that he doesn't have to go to the hospital. They do EKGs. Everything seems like it's fine. He's okay. So they decide that they're going to let him stay home. Once everybody leaves, you know, Claire starts to break down. Like, Norman, you had something to do with Madison's disappearance, didn't you? And he finally admits it. Yes. When he broke it off, she became unstable. She came to the house. He thought he was either going to kill herself or kill her. So then she just disappeared. When he told her, you know, you got to leave, she just disappeared. Claire thinks that Madison is the one that tried to kill him. Her ghost is the one that put the hairdryer. Because apparently that's what ghosts do. Well, this is going to be hilarious.
Wait, let's knock this hairdryer in while you're taking a shower. Electrocute your ass.
So Claire has a braid of Madison's hair, you know, that she stole earlier, and she goes out to the dock. And Norman's watching her, and she just, like, falls in the water. She sees a box at the bottom, and she goes to grab it, but Norman pulls her up out of the water before she has the chance to. Then she starts frantically looking for the braid. Norman finds it. He's like, is this what you're fucking looking for? He takes it inside, and he's, you know, this is her hair. They put it in the fireplace, and he burns it, and he apologizes to Claire. You know, I'm so sorry, I fucked up. And it seems at this point that Claire has genuinely forgiven Norman at this point.
So she goes to take a bath, and she gets out, puts her robe on, and when she reaches in the pocket of her robe, she finds the key.
This key?
That she had found in the register. And she realizes that key goes to the box that's in the bottom of the lake.
This box.
Yes. So she decides to go get the box. She jumps in, dives into the bottom of the lake, which freaks me out because it's so dark. Like, there's no way in hell.
Dark water.
Yeah. No way I'm doing that. I'll wait until the sun comes up.
Yep.
So she brings the box inside, and she opens it, and she finds a necklace that was Madison's that she had on in a picture. This is when Norman catches her and says, "You don't know what that is." And she looks at him and she's like, "You killed her, didn't you?"
And it's, it's her box, her possessions in the bottom of our lake.
Yeah. So he pretty much says he didn't kill her, that she killed herself, and that she left Claire a note. And because of the position that he was in, he didn't want to get in trouble. So he puts her in her car and just dumps her into the lake. And he begs Claire, like, please don't tell anybody. It was an accident. What I did was wrong. And she's just like, no, like, somebody needs to know about this girl,
Her mom has no idea where she's at.
She doesn't have that closure. She didn't know if she's dead, alive. Like, someone needs to know. This was a young girl, and her family wants to know where she is.
And, what I hate about this scene is, obviously, I love Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Growing up a huge Indiana Jones fan, a huge Star Wars fan, to see him play this victim, she was going to ruin my life.
Yeah.
She's dead, dude, and she was a little girl. Not a little, she's an adult. But she's a young lady, man, and you used your position of power that got her in this position in the first place. She killed herself in your house. It's still your fault. You did this to this young lady.
Absolutely. So he's like, okay, I'll call the police. So he calls 911 and he says, I have some information about the missing girl. Can you come to, and then he gives them their address.
Yeah.
This is when you see Claire has Madison's necklace on, and she checks the caller ID on the phone, and she realizes that he called 411, not 911.
So at this point, Norman sneaks up on her. He has a rag with a halothane on it, and he puts it on her face. She tries to fight him off, but as we remember, you lose all your motor functions for 3 to 5 minutes. So the loss of her extremities, her heart will still beat, her brain will still function, but she won't be able to move at all. She's paralyzed. Norman says, I pleaded with you to let it go. She was going to go to the dean. Do you think I was going to let her ruin my life? How could I let that happen? I'm not going to let her do that to us, which was really, I'm not going to let her do that to me.
Right.
You have no idea, though, what it was like to hold her under the water and watch her life slip away.
So he did kill her. She didn't kill herself. He didn't, put her into the lake after she killed herself. He killed her because he's a selfish bastard.
That's a twist. That's very twisty.
He says, she gave me no choice, and neither have you. He then puts her paralyzed body in the bathtub and starts filling it up with water. He says, ooh, it's cold. I almost froze to death pretending to be electrocuted, waiting for you. You're like, you miserable son of a bitch, man. Han Solo would never. That's all I'm going to say. So the water in the tub is filling up, and Norman calls Jody, and he's like, hey, me and Claire had a fight. I'm going to go stay the night at the lab. If you could, please go check on her in the morning. He's already planting the seeds.
Yeah, he wants Jody to find her dead body like she committed suicide.
Right. So he asks her to check on her in the morning. Norman tells Claire that her suicide will bring him and Caitlin even closer together.
Which is like,
oh, you son of a bitch.
Yes.
Indiana Jones would never. Just saying. Every time he looks at her, he'll see Claire. He then notices Madison's necklace, and he picks it up. He lifts her up to look at the necklace, and when he puts her down, we get the dead face stare. Norman gets freaked out by this, and he falls backwards, smokes his head on the sink, knocking himself out.
Yeah, so the halothane, it starts to wear off a little bit, and Claire is able to unplug the stopper, and the water starts to drain. She
barely with her toe.
Yes.
Like, she's just barely able to get it.
In the water, she's, trying to reach her head because she's almost completely covered by water. So luckily she was able to get that. This is when she gets out and she realizes that Norman's no longer on the ground where he had been, fallen. So she takes a piece of the broken mirror and she starts walking downstairs. She wants to kind of be able to see behind her because you know how he comes up behind her all the time.
Right.
And she walks downstairs and then she sees him laying there.
Looks like he tried to get away, but he was losing so much blood. Because we didn't mention that. When he hit his head,
There's
and
blood
he's bleeding
everywhere.
So obviously, as he was trying to get away, he lost a lot of blood and he just fell down.
Yeah, so he has a cordless phone and she tries to get it from him and he flinches and it freaks her out.
Yeah, and now I want to talk about this real quick because she gets up and runs outside and Norman opens his eye. And this, we're going to talk about this here in a little bit, but this is totally a shot reminiscent of Psycho to me. Mm-hmm. Like, this looks like Robert Zemeckis said, Bobby Zemeckis was like, we need to get this shot just like this. So we have the pan out. It looks like Psycho. We got the fade in the background.
For sure.
Amazing shot. I love this shot. Claire gets in her car, but she realizes that she has the keys to the truck, not the car. So she gets into Norman's truck and she speeds off. She's going over the bridge. Norman is in the back where the boat was, and he's trying to get into the truck. Obviously, she's trying to get signal, but
We know we don't get signal till the middle of the bridge.
so she's got quite a ways to go to get to the middle of that bridge. Norman breaks the back window and he starts to strangle her. She hits the gas pedal and the truck starts driving fast. Claire sees Madison's ghost and she swerves off the bridge into the like she's right at the end of the bridge. So she swerves into the grass. And Claire can't get out of the truck. The truck goes all the way down. They hit the water. They're going into the water right at the boat launch. Sound familiar? She tries to get out of the back window, but Norman pulls her back in. He won't let her go, and he pushes her head underwater. You're like, oh, they're both going to die because they're not getting out of this truck. That's when you see the pole comes through and it hits the car. He really did put Madison's car into the river. And Madison's body starts floating up towards the truck, and her head turns towards Norman, and he starts freaking out. She grabs a hold of him and starts pulling him down, which allows Claire to get out that back window and up to the surface. But we see that she pulls him down and starts to decay again.
Didn't see it coming, did ya?
Yeah,
As
which
she kills
is
Norman.
an awesome shot. I love how that looks.
You want to talk about a horror movie? This is a perfect example of how it's a horror movie. Her body is just, and then she does that face
Yes.
turn and grabs him. Terrifying shot.
Absolutely. So Claire, she goes to Madison's grave. She puts a rose on top of it, and it's snowing. And in the snow, you actually see Madison's face.
You guys see it right now on the screen. And that's where the movie ends. So before we get into our score of this movie, I talked about it at the beginning. We talked about it a couple seconds ago. The Psycho references throughout this movie. And it even says right on the DVD. This does for bathtubs what Psycho did for showers. And I think that's brilliant because it's true. And so you got that, the idea of the bathtub in the shower, which is something I feel like was a direct influence from Psycho. Our main character's name in this is Norman.
Norman, yes.
So you got your Norman base reference. And a lot of the shots, like I talked about the shot with Harrison Ford on the ground when his eye opens and Claire's running in the background. I feel like that's a direct homage to Psycho, the way that Psycho was innovative with their shots, whether it was the ceiling shot or the crane shots or, the shower scene, like everything was very innovative with Alfred Hitchcock. And I feel like that's what they were going for with this. A lot of innovative shots. And I feel like they really pulled it off as well.
Let's talk about the ending faces. You got Madison's face in the snow. You got Norma's face, on Norman. That's very much so alike. And the score.
Oh.
The score is so Psycho-esque.
Yeah.
It you can definitely tell that they used.
I just feel like Robert Zemeckis made it very clear that he was not ripping off Psycho.
Yeah, no, he just used it, kind of as like
A love letter.
Yeah.
It was this movie is a total love letter, I feel like, from Bob Zemeckis to Alfred Hitchcock and Psycho. So obviously out of 5 skulls, I think I'm going to give this a 3. There are some very, very big inconsistencies in the film that really bother me. Like when the picture frame breaks, on the front of that picture frame was Norman at the party where Madison was when she, the next day, Claire seen her and went crazy. But on the back of it, she's already missing. So, I mean, like there are, there's big inconsistencies like that in the film. Beautifully shot. Great acting. Even Cooper the dog is an amazing little actor. So there's a lot I love about the movie, but there's a lot that just doesn't quite land for me. So I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 skulls.
I'm going to give it a 4. I've always really enjoyed this movie since it came out in 2000. Like you said, there's really good shots in it. The storyline is so scary and it ramps up your anxiety. We have really good actors and actresses.
It goes through so many different parts too.
Yeah.
This is who's dead. No, this is who's dead. This is how we're going to find him.
Yeah, and I feel like it ages well. There's all this stuff that you can still pick out. There's these little hidden gems that if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss. Right. So, yeah, I'm going to say 4 out of 5. I really do enjoy this movie.
And so do I. And if you guys haven't seen it, we strongly recommend you checking it out. Obviously, we left out certain parts. This is mainly just about the twist and how the twist was so effective for us. So we want to thank you guys again for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, subscribe, and follow us on social media so you can stay up to date on everything we have coming up in the future. Until next time, I'm Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
Keep talking horror,
Stay who you are.
and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.